From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Tuesday. And we've got kind of an interesting show this morning. We're going to jump around to some various topics, and it's all really built around what happened overnight, the weather pattern we're seeing right now, and maybe what we can expect down the road, not just later this week, but into the winter months. We're going to be joined by Leland Statham. He's over there still wrapping up things with the morning crew. And, of course, he and Ron and Charlie and everyone were in over the past 24 hours monitoring the storms, which thankfully I don't think were as bad as we feared they might become. That's oftentimes the case. But boy, it was windy in Mount Juliet at one point. And, you know, we've got the weather alert calls that come in and say it's coming your way, and 10 minutes later blew through. So what's it like in your neck of the woods? How was it? Did you venture out into it? We're going to have some video we'll be able to play for you. But the main thing is Leland will be coming over. And look, here's some of the damage video. We've got, you know, we had crews all over the mid-state region yesterday. And it's the same. You know, you could pull damage video, frankly, from any number of tornado or storms over the past 15 years. And it's going to look pretty much like this. And it's never easy to stomach because people get hurt and property gets damaged. But that's it. It's predominantly trees down, and it's predominantly power lines. I know there are some homes still without power, but not a ton of them. It's days like this that you understand, and it's frustrating sometimes when you see NES come to your neighborhood if you live here in the metro area, and they're cutting back the tree line, you know, the tree, and it ends up getting done. It looks like a tree out of a Dr. Seuss book. You're like, gosh, you just butchered my trees. That looks horrible. And they're saying, well, we have to do this because if a storm comes, those limbs will fall on the power lines and knock out all the energy to this neighborhood. And you see why now. Those trees go down, and if they're over power lines, those lines are coming down, and that's just making things worse. But anyway, it doesn't fortunately look like it was as bad as we had feared, though. We did have quite a bit of heavy winds, some tornado video that came through here. And the question is, what next? I know last time Leland was on, we were talking about what the projections are for this winter, and I could be wrong, but I remember him saying it's too early to know for certain, but it looks like we may have more cold weather, possibly some more snow events this winter. We'll see if that's the case. But we'll get into that with him. Take phone calls for Leland on weather. That's always interesting talking to him about that. And then at some point, we'll also break into later in the program, because he has to go back and forth, into some Open Phones Tuesday, if you will. We'll talk about some of the other stories making headlines. And let me just set the table for you on that, and then you can start calling in. We can put you on hold. Leland will be joining us in just a few moments. But the number is 737-7587. Other things just to touch bases on, and the big story that I think people are following, and my question nationally, internationally, is how concerned are you about Ebola? All right, I was just talking to our intern Kyle, and we were talking how some people think, well, a lot of folks are reacting like this is something new, and, you know, this Ebola virus, what the heck is this? I read the book The Hot Zone probably 10 years ago, maybe it was more than that, going into, you know, what the Ebola virus is all about and the concerns about some of these super bugs that are out there. And so I knew all about Ebola, and every once in a while there'd be an Ebola, you know, surface attack somewhere in Africa, and there'd be a handful of people dying in a village or something like this, and then it would go away, and then it would come back, and they'd always be small. And in the back of my mind, I always kept thinking, every time I'd read about it, there's going to be an outbreak that's going to get bigger. And when it does get bigger in Africa, in this world community we live in, where everyone can travel, it's going to spread, and it's going to come to this country. Now, the big difference, as you've heard time and again, this country is more prepared to deal with it. But I don't take it in a cavalier way. And now, of course, the latest thing is this crazy situation with the 26-year-old nurse in Dallas who's right now being treated right now. And there she is, this Ebola patient. I think her name is, what is it, Fawn? Is it, let's see, yeah, Nina Pham. She was one of the nurses that treated that man who died, who came from Liberia. And the question was now, how did she get exposed? Now, Tom Frieden, the director of the Centers for Disease Control, apparently has apologized. I don't see why he has to, but he's apologizing to the officials at this hospital in Dallas. He had made comments saying that she was probably infected through a breach of protocol. And now he's saying, well, that doesn't reflect on Pham or the hospital's efforts. Well, wait a second. Yeah. All right, she was treating a Ebola patient, and then she gets it? Well, something was wrong on the way she was protecting herself, unless she recently has been in Liberia, Africa, which I don't think is the case. So yeah, they screwed up, and that's the problem. The only way Ebola is going to spread in this country is if people screw up. And yeah, that can happen. We'll talk about that. There's other things I can throw out there for you, but we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Leland will join us, and we'll take some phone calls from you on the weather, questions for him, and we'll get his take on how everything played out and what we can expect in the days to come. So stay with us. We'll be back with Leland Statham right after this.